There are moments in naval warfare when the ocean itself feels like it is holding its breath. Moments when a commander realizes that something in the battle has shifted. Not because of explosions, not because of radio chatter, but because of what fails to happen. For Kapitänleutnant Wolfgang Lüth, that moment occurred on the night of September 20th, 1943, somewhere in the endless grey swells of the North Atlantic. U-181 was running deep, 150 metres, her hull creaking under pressure, her engines reduced to a whisper. Convoy OS 18 pushed steadily westward above them, a floating wall of steel, escorted by British and Canadian corvettes. It should have been a perfect hunting ground. It should have been the night Germany unveiled its new miracle weapon, the T5 Zaunkönig acoustic torpedo. 3 years of research, millions of Reichsmarks, a weapon designed to end the age of the escort ship in a single stroke. Lüth had fired the first one at 00:19 hours. He had expected the signature sound, the rising whine of a homing sensor locking onto a ship's propellers, followed by the unmistakable hollow thunder of a kill. But instead, he heard nothing. No detonation. No structural collapse of an escort breaking apart. Only the hum of decoys somewhere off the stern of the corvettes. A strange metallic rattling, unlike any propeller he had ever heard. At first, Lüth assumed interference, perhaps a technical misfire. The T5 was new. Bugs were possible. But then he fired a second, and a third. Every time the same thing happened. The torpedoes veered away, curved toward that strange noise at the escort's sterns, and detonated harmlessly behind them. It made no tactical sense. The Germans had been assured no Allied ship has any countermeasure capable of diverting an acoustic torpedo. And yet, in real time, Lüth was watching something impossible. The weapon Germany believed would change the war, being defeated before it had even drawn blood. U-181 remained silent beneath the waves as he paced the command deck, replaying every detail in his mind. Was it operator error? Faulty calibration? Sensor malfunction? No. Something else was happening. Something larger. Something systemic. At 00:47 hours, he fired the fourth T5. This one was aimed at HMS Drumheller, a Flower-class corvette making 12 knots. On the hydrophones, the torpedo's tracking was perfect. It was hungry, alive, accelerating toward its prey. And then, like all the others, it curved toward that strange mechanical roar being towed behind the escort. The explosion came exactly 95 meters behind Drumheller. A perfect detonation. A perfectly useless one. And at that moment, Lüth understood. Germany's miracle weapon had been defeated. Not in months, not in weeks. But before it ever entered combat, the implications struck him immediately and brutally. For the Allies to deploy this device, to design it, test it, manufacture it, and distribute it across entire convoy fleets, they would have needed months, meaning they knew. Meaning they had intelligence before the first T5 ever left the design bureau. But even that didn't explain the speed. Even with perfect intelligence, no nation should have been able to counter a 3-year development program in just 90 days. Not unless they had something Germany did not. Not unless they had a larger research pipeline, a broader industrial base, a faster innovation cycle, a system that could produce countermeasures faster than Germany could produce threats. This wasn't just a tactical problem. It was a structural one, a civilizational disadvantage playing out in real time. And Lüth was the first German commander to witness it directly. At 0133 hours, Lüth surfaced and transmitted an encrypted message to BDU headquarters. T5 ineffective against Convoy OS 18. All escorts towing acoustic decoy devices. Recommend immediate tactical reassessment. He still had two T5s loaded. He did not fire them. There was no point. The wonder weapon of the Kriegsmarine, the torpedo meant to restore dominance to the U-boat arm, was already dead. Dead on arrival. Lüth fired his fourth T5 at 0047 hours. This time not to strike, but to verify a suspicion that had taken shape in his mind. The target was HMS Drumheller, a Flower-class corvette making roughly 12 knots. The moment the torpedo left the tube, he already knew what would happen. The T5 curved toward the sound signature exactly as designed, and then veered off toward the Foxer decoy trailing behind the ship. The explosion flashed harmlessly, 95 meters astern of the corvette, precisely where the enemy wanted it to detonate. At that moment, Lüth understood the scale of the disaster unfolding in front of him. 3 years of acoustic research, millions of Reichsmarks, priority use of strategic materials, copper windings, precision alloys, guidance assemblies. Security protocols so strict, even senior personnel were compartmentalized. And yet the Allies had not only known the T5 was coming, they had built a functioning countermeasure before Germany even deployed the weapon. The implications were catastrophic. Even if Allied spies had obtained the complete T5 specifications in June 1943, something Lüth considered nearly impossible under existing security, there simply wasn't enough time. 90 days was not enough to design, test, mass produce, and distribute a countermeasure across the Atlantic fleet. 3 years of German development defeated by 3 months of Allied response. It wasn't just intelligence, it wasn't just engineering. This was industrial speed, systemic coordination beyond anything Germany could match. Lüth had spent months in the Indian Ocean hunting unprotected British freighters. He understood what true technological surprise felt like. But here he was witnessing the opposite. Germany had sprung the trap, and the Americans had already disarmed it. Quietly, efficiently, before German command even realized it. At 0133 hours, he surfaced and transmitted a coded message to BDU. T5 ineffective. All escorts using acoustic decoys. Recommend immediate tactical reassessment. He didn't bother firing his remaining 2 T5 torpedoes. The mission orders, destroy 4 escorts using the new weapon, were impossible. Not because the torpedo was poorly designed, but because it had been defeated before it even entered combat. His report reached BDU at 9:17 hours. Headquarters initially dismissed it as operator error. Perhaps Lüth misunderstood the decoy. Perhaps he fired incorrectly. Perhaps the torpedoes malfunctioned. But within 72 hours, 6 other U-boats equipped with T5s sent identical reports. Escorts towing decoys. Torpedoes detonating harmlessly behind targets. 0 confirmed kills. By September 25th, denial was no longer possible. A complete collapse in effectiveness. In that single month, German U-boats fired 127 T5s. Only 3 hits were confirmed, and all 3 occurred against ships whose Foxer devices had broken free of their tow cables. A weapon projected to achieve 75% effectiveness had delivered 2.4%. A failure rate so severe it shook German naval planning to its foundations. U-boat losses skyrocketed. October 1943, 26 boats lost. November, 19 more. By mid-November, Dönitz withdrew U-boats from the North Atlantic entirely. Not a tactical shift, an admission of defeat. Germany could no longer threaten the main Allied supply line. Britain would not starve. American soldiers and supplies would reach Europe without interruption. The Battle of the Atlantic, in strategic terms, was over. For Lüth, the September patrol marked a turning point deeper than any tactical failure. He returned to Bordeaux on October the 8th, after 31 days at sea, without sinking a single vessel. The first such patrol of his career since 1940. His after-action report was unemotional, precise, and brutally honest. The enemy's coordinated deployment of countermeasures suggests either catastrophic security compromise or an Allied ability to anticipate and counter threats without needing complete technical specifications. If the first explanation was true, Germany had a problem. If the second explanation was true, Germany had already lost the war. And Lüth, unlike many others, understood which one was correct. Post-war records later confirmed exactly what Lüth suspected during that silent, agonizing patrol. The Allied Foxer decoy was not a miracle invention. It was one of 17 anti-U-boat technology programs funded simultaneously between January and August 1943. Not 17 projects created because the Allies knew what Germany was building. 17 projects created because they didn't need to know. The American approach to warfare was systematic, industrial, and brutally efficient. Build everything, test everything, deploy whatever works first. 8 of the 17 programs produced combat-ready systems. Foxer acoustic decoy, improved Hedgehog forward-firing charges, HF-DF refinements, high-frequency direction finding, MAD detection, magnetic anomaly, sonobuoy acoustic networks, aircraft-deployed homing torpedoes, radar enhancements, night search radar improvements. 9 projects failed completely, but the Allies didn't care. Those 9 failures cost a combined $3.7 million, less than the cost of manufacturing 200 German T5 torpedoes. The message was clear. The Allies were fighting a war of systems. Germany was fighting a war of inventions. Germany spent 3 years perfecting a single torpedo. The Americans spent 3 months producing an entire ecosystem designed to defeat anything Germany could possibly deploy. For U-boat command, this truth was unthinkable. For Wolfgang Lüth, it was undeniable. After his October return to Bordeaux, Lüth was promoted to Korvettenkapitän and sent to command the 1st U-boat training division. He never sailed another combat patrol. His new role was to prepare young crews for missions he knew were becoming strategically meaningless. Interrogators after the war noted that Lüth understood, long before most German officers, that the war was being lost, not through bravery or cowardice, not through brilliant victories or crushing defeats, but through industrial arithmetic. The Americans could produce countermeasures faster than Germany could design new threats. The T5 program continued through 1944 with modified variants, the T5B, the T11, but each improvement arrived too slowly. Before the new torpedoes even reached their operational flotillas, Allied countermeasures had already evolved. In March 1944, the US Navy deployed CAT gear, the second-generation towed torpedo decoy, rendering the T5B obsolete before most German crews even knew it existed. German development cycle, 14 to 18 months. Allied countermeasure cycle, 6 to 8 weeks. The mathematics were impossible to overcome. Final wartime statistics told the story with brutal clarity. 640 German acoustic torpedoes fired. 9 Allied escorts sunk. All 9 only occurred when the escort's decoy device failed, or when the torpedo was launched so close that it had no time to track the Foxer. Cost of sinking one Allied escort using T5 torpedoes, approximately $1.4 to $4 million, plus U-boat losses. Cost of a single Foxer decoy, $227. The economic exchange rate, 6,000 plus 1, in favor of the defense. A perfect symbol of the entire war. Germany built excellence. The Allies built speed. And speed won. Wolfgang Lüth did not live to see the final analysis. On May 14th, 1945, 6 days after Germany's surrender, he was accidentally shot by a German sentry who failed to recognize him at the Flensburg-Merwick naval base. A tragic, bitter end. One of Germany's most decorated U-boat commanders survived 4 years of relentless combat, only to die from misidentification in a war already lost, in a system collapsing under its own confusion. His final recorded words on the T5 torpedo came just weeks earlier, in April 1945. A young officer asked whether improved acoustic weapons might still shift the strategic balance. Lüth replied, "The torpedo works perfectly. That is the tragedy. We built a perfect weapon for a war we could not win." He understood what most never did. The Americans did not defeat the torpedo. They defeated the idea that perfection mattered more than speed. In modern war, adequate and fast beats perfect and late. In September 1943, Wolfgang Lüth discovered the truth, and by the time he understood it, the war's outcome was already decided. Wolfgang Lüth's story is a reminder that wars are not won by brilliance alone, but by systems, coordination, and the relentless rhythm of industrial capacity. A perfect weapon, no matter how advanced, is meaningless if it arrives too late, or if the enemy has already adapted. The T5 torpedo was Germany's technological triumph, but it became a symbol of strategic failure. In the silent waters of the North Atlantic, the greatest U-boat commander of his generation learned a lesson that resonates beyond the battlefield. In modern war, speed often matters more than perfection, and preparation matters more than genius. The tide of history does not bend for skill alone. It bends for those who understand the larger system and act faster than anyone else. If you found this story compelling, if you felt the tension of those cold, dark Atlantic nights, then take a moment to like this video. It helps us continue sharing untold stories from World War II, stories that go beyond strategy and bullets, into the minds of the men who fought, failed, and survived. Subscribe to stay connected with these cinematic histories, and leave a comment below telling us where you are watching from. Your voice becomes part of this global community that refuses to let these stories fade. Every moment matters, every decision matters, and every story deserves to be remembered.